Hello guys, Steve here, and today's video is going to be about the YakAttack Visicarbon Pro light safety flag. Not a review about it, but how to salvage it if you're having problems with it, need repairs, and like me, I was just about ready to chuck this dude. I actually have 3 problems with it. The bolt, the carriage style bolt, the stud that utilizes the mighty mount, froze in there, and so I can no longer use it. The carbon fiber pole snapped off, cracked, and then eventually broke. And the light basically corroded out. So if you have any of those problems, I'll show you how to fix them for very cheaply and easily. Alright, first part of it, the lights. Now, I did do a quickie video on one of my 1 through 5, or actually it was 11 through 15 tips. But anyways, to fix this light, or actually the way it works is it uses these little modules. And they are basically a little 2 LED, or they sell these little modules for 10 bucks, replacement ones, or you can get the 4 LED for $15. But it's just a little motherboard with a couple LEDs to it. Has the 2 contacts on the bottom, the one for the battery and the outside edge for the ground. And the way it works in these lights is they take 3 AA batteries, fit inside the housing, and this will sit on top as a contact point, like that. And when you're utilizing it, all you do is you tighten down on the cap. Oops, if I can get it. Okay. It's loose, it's off. Once you tighten it down, it compresses it, and that basically creates the contact with the batteries on both sides, and then the light turns on. When you're done with it, you loosen it up until the light goes out, and you kind of need to do it a little bit more in case it jars and hits again, and that shuts it off. The issue is corrosion. Corrosion kills everything. Kills everything. I keep saying it, but it does. Anything with batteries, anything electrical, anything metal, corrosion will get it. Eventually what happened is it started corroding on the inside. So as you can see, this one, replacement one, lasted about 3 months. The first one lasted a few years, but that one 3 months, and I knew once corrosion started in here, I was also having contact problems. The little spring on the bottom and the metal contacts that run to the top to complete the circuit, I know those were starting to corrode because I wasn't getting very good contact and very light. The light wasn't engaging very brightly, so I needed to fix that, and I wasn't going to be kept spending 10 bucks or 15 bucks like they recommended because I knew it would not work in the long run. So I came up with the idea is that since this housing is made for AA batteries, if I found a little flashlight that say held AAA batteries or little watch batteries that was that diameter of a AA, it would slide in there and it would shoot light out and it would do the same thing, and I would be good to go. So my video before, I went and got it from the dollar store, a tiny little keychain light, stuck it in there, and it worked perfectly. But then I started thinking, wow, that's like a pretty good compartment. It's a waterproof compartment. So I went online and I ordered one of these little, runs off of one AAA battery. It's a Cree brand. And it's more of a waterproof light, where that other dollar store one was not. And it's a nice LED, powerful one made by Cree, who does a lot of flashlights. And it was the right diameter. It came with a little belt clip on it. I just popped that off, so it's just the housing. And I found it fit perfectly. Fits in the housing, sticks a little bit out, which is fine because the cap goes over it. And I just tighten it down, and it's waterproof and safe, but off. So when I need to turn it back on, this is, I mean, I have to physically take the cap off, which does kind of add a little bit of work to it. Click it on, put it back in, and boom. I have a light, it's brighter than those 2 ever were, and I know it's a waterproof housing within that waterproof housing, so I'm sure it's not going to get it's going to last longer versus the corrosion just by itself. But then I also thought too is you get stranded on an island or you get caught out and you're stuck at nighttime, maybe you didn't bring your light or your iPhone's not working, I could just take this out of the housing and I've got a handheld actual light I could use for signaling and so forth, more than just a little dull 2 LEDs that has decent visibility at nighttime, but this has focused and is even brighter. Get stranded on an island, I could walk around with this, but so this ended up fixing that and made it, I think, better than the original design was. Then, problem number 2. This carbon pole here is light, yeah, but what it is that this top part here is actually the diameter of the pole that inserts into the base. It is very thin, and carbon fiber itself is not very strong when you put flex on it, especially on an endpoint like what this does. It basically goes in maybe an inch, maybe a little bit less than an inch, but this it flexes and flexes. You can pop it out. This breaks down into 3 separate pieces, just like a tent pole. And what happens is that end starts getting fragile. It starts cracking and cracking and cracking to the point where eventually it reaches to the top and you're going and it snaps off and it's broken. And the way they have it is that it's beefed up in the center here, thin, thicker even than that, and then it goes down to real back to the original thin where it inserts into the base unit. But when you crack it off, then you're like, oh crap, I'm screwed because the thick part is no longer going to fit in the base. But in order to make it thicker, all they did is they basically got some plastic shrink wrap or some sort of plastic wrap on it that built it up and it supported it, made it stronger, but it was just more for visibility, I think, or not visibility, but for more, oh, this is a beefer unit, won't break, because you can't see inside the mount that it's just the thin part that's actually going into the base. And how you fix that is you just basically cut off the broken pieces so you're down to a nice clean section. Even though it's the thick part, don't worry about it. Once you've got that, you measure out the distance that it fits into the housing, get a razor blade, and you just cut around the whole thing, and basically it's just a plastic wrap. Cut around it, and then you just peel off that plastic so you're back down to the original carbon fiber pole size, and boom, you wedge it back into the base. You're golden, it's fixed, okay? Now for me, my resolve to make it even better was I never broke this thing down to put it in a little case. I didn't need to put it on in my suitcase or stick it inside the kayak for whatever reason. So one piece is fine with me. So what I did is I took the little bungee cord that runs through the unit that makes it like a tent pole that you could break it down, but it'll stay together and it'll snap back. And I pulled it out, and then I took all the slack out of it so the bungee was tight, and then tied it up to the thicker part up on top. So now it's basically tied in there and it's very solid. It's bungee, so I could still pull it loose, but now that it's wedged in there, I don't have to worry about it flexing out and vibrating as much, so I think it'll last a lot longer just in that regard. Okay, so that's the fix number 2. Then the third part, and now you understand why I was about to pitch this thing even though it cost 90 to 100 bucks. I use a MightyMout bracket, and then they give you a special MightyMout made bolt that screws into it. And the way it works is I'll show a picture of the MightyMout. It's basically a square box with a little cutout, and it's hollow in the center, so it creates like an insert. And you basically stick the little kind of bolt in there, it slides in, you screw it down, and then it wedges itself, and that's how it sits, and it's tightened, just like that. My problem was corrosion again. Got to it, and I hadn't used it for a bit, and the bolt, and they use a little barrel nut on the inside that's infused in the plastic housing, corroded together, and it would no longer screw or unscrew. I couldn't break it loose, it was done. I used this in my rod holders, which was fine, but I only have a couple of the large diameter rod holders, and when I go out trolling, I need those for my offshore poles. They use a bigger base. So I needed to get this back working on that MightyMout. So, the fix. Since I couldn't get that off, I had to basically cut it off, and then I started drilling it to tap it out, drill it out. Eventually what happened though is that it uses a very tiny barrel style nut that is infused in the plastic. Once I started pushing on it, the whole thing, the shank of the bolt and that barrel nut just basically popped out of that plastic, and it was just sitting in here loose, just jiggling. So I thought, okay, great. Now how would I do? Now if you ever look at this mount, it looks like this cap right here should just unscrew. Is it like it would be just an unscrew? But it's not. I put pliers on it and a vise and tried it. It just would not come undone. Eventually I found out what it is if you pull back the rubber foam, they have it right here with the little rivet. A rivet on that side and a rivet on this side. And what it is that it's this metal cap on the end, and it's attached to basically what looks like a cork, and that goes into this housing here. So it's basically just like a cork housing that goes inside. That cork housing had that little barrel nut infused in it, and it's plastic, and then that's what this would always screw into, and handy dandy until you break that out. So what do? I no longer had the bolt, and I no longer had the little barrel valve. So go down to Home Depot again. They have a little barrel insert nut, very small, that you would use like into, on the outside it had little teeth into it, so you could basically screw it into a wall or drywall or whatnot, screw that into it so that you would have a threaded nut, or basically a threaded barrel nut, and which was the same thing as a small one, but this one has little teeth on the outside, so you wedge it in there. So I found a small one that fit in there, and then I got the corresponding carriage bolt. Now these carriage bolts are just standard carriage bolts. You can get them in a galvanized metal, you can get them into regular steel, but you can also get them in stainless steel. You want the stainless steel. Get the one that fits that nut, which is basically the same size as the one I took out. Okay. Now on its own, it won't fit in that Mighty mount. You have to do a little bit of modifications with a grinder. The reason why is the rounded diameter is too thick to fit inside the Mighty mount, so you have to cut a little bit of the ears off on parallel sides of it to make it a narrow side so that it could slip in. So it's more of an oval shape with two sides of it just a flat side. Just grind it down until it's narrow enough to fit into that Mighty mount. The other thing that I had to do is, because carriage bolts are rounded on the top, it was too thick to fit into the Mighty mount. So what I did is just took the grinder, grinded off the dome until it was snugly fit in there. It doesn't have to be loose because you want it snug to begin with, but just ground it off till it would slide in snugly, bam, and tighten it down. Problem solved. All three of them working, and I'm back to just like new, and I think even better. So that is the fix. If you have one of any of these problems, or maybe all three, don't throw it away. You can salvage it. The nuts and the barrel nut and the carriage bolt will cost maybe $2 or $3. The light that I bought, the Cree brand light, I'll put a link in the to eBay site for it. It was $3.69, free shipping from California. And the mod for this was just a razor blade, so that was free. So anyways, that is your fix to get you back on the road with the Visicarbon Pro YakAttack safety flag. Hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.